All right. Happy New Year. Obama just signed the National Defense Authorization Bill. Well, now it's an act. What does that mean? It means that now America's a big battlefield. Yes. Now the U.S. military can detain people indefinitely without a trial and without a charge. George W. Bush, okay, he obviously was a Republican. He signed the Patriot Act, which also paved the way for a lot of government entities to actually spy on people without proper warrants. Well, okay, well, Obama signed a renewal of the Patriot Act. So it shows you both, when it really counts, both Republicans and Democrats support the attack on civil liberties. When it comes to the financial stuff, TARP, the bailouts, both Republicans and Democrats support the corporatism. When it really matters, they show their true colors. Okay, so all this illusion, all this rhetoric about Republicans versus Democrats, it's a false choice.
Our ancestors tried to protect us against this omnipotent type of power. That was the whole idea. They said, look, the greatest threat to our freedom, the freedom of the American people, is this federal government that we're calling into existence. And to protect the people from this government, we're going to have the Bill of Rights and constitutional limitations.
The Nobel Peace Prize winner has just announced and authorized that he has told the CIA that it can assassinate American citizens in direct violation of the Constitution's Due Process Clause, in violation of federal law, and in violation of treaties to which the U.S. is a party. The Due Process Clause to the Constitution states that no person, whether they're overseas or in the U.S., may be deprived of life, liberty, or property by the government without due process of law, which means a jury trial.
He was never tried or charged for any crimes. Nobody knows if he ever killed anybody.
There's no trial here. There is no judicial determination. It's some bureaucrat or team of bureaucrats that says, we have determined that that guy is guilty of terrorism, therefore we have a right to kill him.
But when the president can kill whoever he wants, then he's not a president anymore, he's a king.
To start assassinating American citizens without charges, we should think very seriously about this.
There aren't even any charges filed against him other than what the president's people have publicly said about him.
I strongly object to the president institutionalizing a policy that explicitly says that he has the authority to target American citizens because he believes they're bad people.
I can remember here at Fox arguing in the hypothetical whether or not the president could order an American killed, and everybody was recoiled at even the thought of it. Now, it doesn't even make the front pages. What about the Constitution? What about life, liberty, and property? What about the very obligations imposed on the government in the document that created the government itself?
And he signs a death warrant.
He signs a death warrant.
Yes, our president has a hit list of American citizens like you targeted for assassination. And there are indications that the list of Americans targeted for assassination is growing.
Well, we all know that their definition of terrorism in every government, every dictatorial regime, inevitably starts going to the area of people who criticize what the government's doing, arguing against it, arguing against the immorality. Ultimately, they start seeing those people as the enemy, people that need to be taken out. I mean, this power is the power that the Chinese communists wield, that the Soviet communists wielded, that they wield in Burma, North Korea. That's now a core feature of the U.S. government. That's not what this country is supposed to be all about.
When allegations of terrorism by the government are subjected to judicial review, in overwhelmingly high percentages of the cases, 72%, courts find that the allegations are without merit. Look at the controversies that were created during the Bush administration when the president got caught spying on American citizens without warrants or trying to detain them without due process. Here you're talking about something far more extreme. You're talking about targeting American citizens for murder, for assassination, based merely on the allegation that they're involved in terrorism. No evidence, no charges, no trial, nothing.
To execute without charge, without trial, without jury, without judge, without appeal, American citizens that it considers dangerous simply because they're not located in the United States. Where do they claim to get this power from?
During the 8 years of the Bush administration, the battle was over torture. Whether they had the power to torture people that they labeled as terrorists with no trial. Now Obama's taking it one step further and saying, well, we don't need to deal with torturing people anymore. We just kill them. And as you point out, it extends to Americans now.
You look at what Democrats, including Barack Obama, objected to, it was merely things like eavesdropping on Americans and detaining them without due process and without charges. And now Democrats have completely abandoned those objections now that there's a Democrat in the White House, and apparently not just detaining and eavesdropping Americans, but targeting them for murder is acceptable to the Democratic Party now that there's a Democrat in the White House. And again, if you justify that, targeting American citizens for assassination without any due process, what don't you approve?
Neither you nor I hesitated to criticize the Bush administration when it was engaging in torture, when it was engaging in spying without warrants, when it pushed through the Patriot Act, which authorizes federal agents to write their own search warrants. There was a huge outcry over all of those things: torture, NSA spying, self-written search warrants. Why isn't there a hue and cry in the media today over the Obama administration claiming it can summarily execute Americans?
Well, all too often the media has become the mouthpiece for the administration, regardless of which administration is in power. I mean, and conservatives bear some of the responsibility here because they vested these powers in George W. Bush, and we libertarians kept saying, you cannot do this. You have to assume that your worst enemy is in power before you vest these powers in there. And sure enough, now Obama, who the conservatives are calling this dangerous socialist, now has all these powers that they vested in Bush. Based on 9/11, the government found the back door around those constitutional restrictions and saying, well, as long as we're at war, we can convert this crime, this criminal offense, terrorism, into an act of war at our option, and now we can do whatever we want. We're not constrained by the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. We can take out anybody.
What they have to get back to is the basic rights and Constitution that say that political leaders in the United States cannot exercise power in an unchecked way.
I have 2 words for you: predator drones. You will never see it coming. You think I'm joking?
Governor Romney, when President Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act into law, he enacted a provision allowing him to indefinitely detain American citizens in U.S. military custody. Many, including Congressman Paul, have called this unconstitutional. At the same time, the bill did provide money to continue funding U.S. troops. Governor Romney, as president, would you have signed the National Defense Act as written?
Yes, I would have, and I do believe that it's appropriate.
Congressman Paul, a different question. Your plan to...
Why can't I answer about that one?
You were included in the question in the first place. Do you want 30 seconds to respond to this?
I need a minute. No, I think we're going in the wrong direction for the protections of our liberties here at home. They're under deep threat. The Patriot Act has eliminated the Fourth Amendment. We now have a policy of preemptive war. You don't have to declare war, and you don't even have to have an enemy. We can start the wars. That's what preemptive war is all about. Now, with the Military Appropriation Defense Act, this is major. This says that the military can arrest an American citizen for under suspicion, and he can be held indefinitely without habeas corpus and denied a lawyer indefinitely, even in a prison here. Let me give you one statistic. You're worrying about all these, where we're going to try people, where are they going to do? We have to do it secretly because our rule of law is so flawed. We have arrested 362 people related to Al-Qaeda top operation. 260 of them are in prison. They've been tried and convicted. So don't give up on our American judicial system so easily. I beg of you. My topic for this evening is assassinations. What have we allowed ourselves to become? Are we no longer a nation of laws? Have we become instead a nation of men who make secret arrests? Are secret prisons now simply another tool of the federal government law enforcement? Is secret rendition of individuals now permitted out of misplaced fear? Have we decided that the writ of habeas corpus is not worth defending? Is torture now an acceptable tool for making us safe? Unfortunately, the single answer to all of these questions from the leaders of our country and to many of our citizens appears to be yes. And now we are told that assassination of foreigners as well as American citizens is legitimate and necessary to provide security for our people. It is my firm opinion that nothing could be further from the truth. Secret arrests, secret renditions, torture, and assassinations are illegal under both domestic and international law. These activities should be anathema to the citizens of a constitutional republic. The real threat doesn't arise from our failure to torture. Rather, desensitizing our nation to the willful neglect and sacrifice of our civil liberties fought and died for over the centuries is the threat. The concept of habeas corpus existed even before King John of England was forced in 1215 by his rebellious barons to sign the Magna Carta. This basic principle and expression of individual liberty, which has survived 800 years, greatly influenced the writing of our Constitution and our common law heritage. Today, we hardly hear a whimper, either from the American people or a stone silent U.S. government as our cherished liberties are eradicated. Instead, we have a government that deliberately orchestrates needless fear and makes people insecure enough to ignore the reality of their lost liberties. It should not be that difficult to distinguish the difference between the danger posed by the underwear bomber and the danger posed by a government that endorses secret prisons, torture, and assassinating American citizens.